Hey everybody, welcome back to Gimbo's Game Theories and Discussions. So today, I'm going to talk about a theory of mine that I came up with some odd years ago as to why I believe that it's possible that the Starkiller from The Force Unleashed 2, the second game, is the real Starkiller and not a clone. So, here we go. First, some history. Starkiller died at the end of the first Force Unleashed game after battling Palpatine to save the rebels from death. Then, in the Force Unleashed 2, the second game, Starkiller returns but is told from the beginning of the game that he's a clone by Darth Vader. Darth Vader would use words like, "You must hate what he loved," when talking to Starkiller. When Starkiller asked Darth Vader about the other clones, Darth Vader replied, "The cloning process is still flawed, so the other clones went mad," and essentially had to be put down. So we're fed this narrative from the very beginning that the Starkiller from the Force Unleashed 2 is a clone. However, Darth Vader says in the last level in the Force Unleashed 2 game, when you return to the cloning facility to face Darth Vader one final time, Darth Vader says that, "I lied. The cloning process has been perfected." And after that you fight some fully functional Starkiller clones. Then if you choose the other ending, then a Starkiller clone kills you and your friends and frees Vader, who says to him, "Take his, Starkiller's, ship and go to the rebellion base and wipe them out." Then this fully functional Starkiller clone does so. Then we're supposed to believe that the Force Unleashed 2 takes place right after the Force Unleashed 1. And at the end of the first Force Unleashed game, if you pick a certain ending, then Palpatine kills you after you kill Darth Vader and reanimates your dead body to do his bidding. So, what happened to the reanimated Starkiller corpse from the end of the first Force Unleashed game? Perhaps the reanimated Starkiller corpse is the same Starkiller as from the Force Unleashed 2. However, the only reason Palpatine reanimates the Starkiller corpse at the end of the first game is because you kill Darth Vader, and essentially you're a replacement for Darth Vader until Palpatine finds a new apprentice. And Darth Vader, we're led to believe it's the real Darth Vader and not a clone, appears in the second Force Unleashed game. So how can that happen if Darth Vader died in the first Force Unleashed game, then how does he appear in the second Force Unleashed game? Unless he's a clone. But we're led to believe that that's the real Darth Vader. But if he's the real Darth Vader in the second Force Unleashed game, then that means that the reanimated Starkiller DLC or whatever is not canon and never really happened, canonically. However, if the reanimated Starkiller at the end of the first Force Unleashed game that appears in the second Force Unleashed game as a clone, then that would potentially be the same Starkiller. However, if Darth Vader died in the first Force Unleashed game, then how does he appear as the real Darth Vader, not a clone, in the second game if he was killed in the first game? And if the second Force Unleashed game is canon, like the first game has become, then that means that Darth Vader never really died in the first game, and therefore the reanimated Starkiller DLC or whatever is not and never was canon, and therefore the reanimated Starkiller and Force Unleashed 2 Starkiller are not the same person. So, in the end, there are too many contradictions to say that the reanimated Starkiller from the Force Unleashed game is the same Starkiller that appears in the second Force Unleashed game. But think about this regarding what I'm talking about. In the Jedi belief, attachments such as love, be it physical, sexual, or spiritual, material possessions, or any other type of desire is not approved by the Jedi Council, as well as other attachments are forbidden by the Jedi Order. The Jedi claim that these attachments are forbidden by the light side of the Force, and therefore when your soul joins the light side of the Force, these things will not join, and if you give in to these temptations and desires, then you're straying away from the path, the true path of the light side of the Force, and therefore you can fall prey to the Sith, the dark side of the Force. So Then there's, at the end of the first Force Unleashed game, A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, The Phantom Menace, as well as other Star Wars stories. When a Jedi dies, their spirit, or soul, whatever you want to call it, leaves their physical body and becomes one with the Force. As Palpatine told Darth Vader about Starkiller after he died, he, Starkiller, is now more powerful than ever after he died. And Obi-Wan told Darth Vader when they dueled, "Strike me down, and I shall become more powerful than you could possibly imagine." Young Obi-Wan told Anakin that Qui-Gon's soul had become one with the Force. And Rey essentially said to Princess Leia about Luke's passing that, "I felt him become one with the Force, and it wasn't bad, it was happy." So, when a Jedi dies, their soul leaves their physical body, becomes one with the Force, leaving their physical body behind. And any personality traits not accepted by the Force. So, what does that all mean? Well, in The Force Unleashed 2, the second game, Starkiller becomes completely obsessed with tracking down Juno, his old love from the first game, essentially running away with her. And in the first Force Unleashed game, Starkiller wasn't obsessed with Juno really at all. Besides the Jedi saying to Juno at the end of the first game about Starkiller, despite all his negative and dark thoughts, there was one positive thought in his head. And Juno asks, "What was that?" And the Jedi replies, "You, Juno." But besides that, Starkiller's main focus in the first Force Unleashed game was on his missions, be they serving Darth Vader or creating and then saving the rebellion. Starkiller didn't focus on Juno in the first game like he did in the second game, where he basically became obsessed with her, and the whole Force Unleashed 2 game becomes nothing more than a manhunt to track down Juno so Starkiller can run away with her. So, what does that have to do with Starkiller not being a clone in Force Unleashed 2? Well, remember when I said earlier that attachments were forbidden by the Jedi Council and Order? Well, if what the Jedi believe is the way of the light side of the Force, the true way of the light side of the Force, and that's really how it works, then when Starkiller died in the first Force Unleashed game, he would join and become one with the Force, and all that made him, or associated with him, with the Jedi Order, would have become one with the Force along with his soul, therefore leaving behind anything not accepted by the light side of the Force, aka attachments, be it love. So, in the end, if Starkiller becomes one with the light side of the Force at the end of the first Force Unleashed game, attachments are not accepted by the light side of the Force, and the Starkiller in the Force Unleashed 2 is completely driven and consumed by physical attachments like love and a lust for Juno, unlike the Starkiller in the first Force Unleashed game, who was more focused on his missions than falling in love with Juno, and none of the other clones in the first Force Unleashed game and the second Force Unleashed game seem to have any sort of attachment to Juno. Then that means the Starkiller in the Force Unleashed 2 could potentially be the physical body of the original Starkiller from the first game, but since his soul joined with the Force, then that would leave behind only the parts of Starkiller that didn't or couldn't join the light side of the Force, aka attachments. Therefore, painting the picture that the Starkiller in the second game is in fact the original Starkiller and the reanimated dead body of the original Starkiller and not a clone. However, the Starkiller from the second game is the parts of Starkiller that didn't join with the Force and was left behind in the physical world, aka Starkiller's body and any personality traits that were or are forbidden by the light side of the Force, and therefore weren't allowed to join with and become one with the Force along with Starkiller's soul, and those rejected personality traits were left behind inside Starkiller's physical mind and body after he died, and essentially the lust and love for Juno. And in the end, that's why I believe that it's possible that the Starkiller from the Force Unleashed 2, the second game, is the real Starkiller and not a clone. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Take care.